Greetings, folks. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that kind of stuff. It helps with the algorithm, apparently. So these are the slides I'm going to go through, and I'm going to add a bit more detail than last time, and I'm going to add a bit what Galenka stated about NI in Model G, and more on the Kersey profile. But first of all, I'm going to, so it's this position, and I'm going to describe it. So there's a few things which intersect here in this position, that it's an NT function, so it's part of the NT club, and that club corresponds to the strategic insights, which is strategic building. It's a situational function because it's an extroverting function within an introvert. So in going over that, so you can see with these colors here that it's two-dimensional in my system because it's valued and it's a club function, but it's not a default function. So if we go to this, I'm just going to go over this again about, because it is a wheelhouse function, TE, in the NIT, and meaning in your wheelhouse. TE is in the wheelhouse of the NIT, the contender rational. There's a strong correlation between a Jungian type's two wheelhouse functions in slots 1 and 2, i.e. in one's wheelhouse, and the top two functions best suited to help enact the type's Kersey predisposed role. E.g., the SIFX is highly concerned with attending to the physical needs, SIH subfunction comfort sensor, that's harmonizing subfunction, attending to the physical needs of other people, especially when the other person is physically unwell. In Kersey temperament model, the accommodator guardian is predisposed to the role of provider protector, e.g. medical doctor, physiotherapist, nurse, career. Many an ISFJ resembler has two in its Enneagram chart. So what we're seeing here is there is a correlation between the Kersey predisposed role and the functions in the wheelhouse column. And so you can say that that is a social level correlate of a function pair or function triad if you include this position here, fish's water. So again, I'm just going to read a little bit from here because we're going to cover most of this when we do slot 4. And I've covered, I've not covered that bit before. It's just there where he's saying that the function pairs, so the clubs are highly relevant, and that's within Dario Nardi's research. This model is mostly consistent with Dario Nardi's research, and his research is consistent with EEG data and Kersey. So this bit I'd like to mention. An extreme introvert is likely to show better use of counter club default functions slot 5 and 7 than a moderate introvert. Conversely, a moderate introvert is likely to show better use of club situation functions, which for an introvert are extroverted, than an extreme introvert. That's just a sort of an assertion by me. Now we're going to get on to some key information about this position before I then go on about TE. So I'm just going to get rid, and I might crash when I do this. Right, so I'm going to talk about the situational row in in all introverting types, and especially in INTJ. So in order to make this more visible, I'll zoom in what I can. So the idea here is that the introvert situationally extroverts, because by default the introvert introverts. But it's like when Dario Nardi, when he gives an EEG to people, he has about like a half an hour, or depending on, I don't know how much they've paid, an hour's worth of various tasks to perform. And you can imagine that some of those tasks are going to draw on different functions more than others, and you have corresponding brain activity depending on what the task is. If it's more, say, logico-mathematical, or asking people to imagine things or to see the future, or various. And so you can see there that the task that someone is performing, the challenges from the environment draw on different functions. And so there's going to be certain circumstances which draw on the extroverting functions of the introvert. And so the situational row. Situational operating mode in the introvert is extroverting, i.e. empiricalizing, externalizing. And I'll back up that viewpoint about empiricalizing. Alfred Binet. Jung didn't mention Alfred Binet in psychological types. According to Anthony Stevens, who himself didn't mention Marie-Louise von Franz when he used her examples. Passing the plagiarism book, maybe, or the unattribution book. Now, compared to the personal row in Victor Galenka's Model G, the situational row is less specific. It can include the personal, yeah, because the personal row in Model G is just that. So it's like the idea that the INTJ would only use its extroverting functions when on its territory, when it's happy to do so. But no, it depends on the situation. Now, that is a useful thought to have. It's just that include the idea of the personal within a larger context. So it's like a subset of the situational. One of the situations could be when the person is on their territory, feeling like they're in their zone, such as, say, INTP. They become more FE when on their territory, more expressive. I know it's not expressive now. I know. So depends if I'm with people. I'm with people I like, then the situation. But part of that situation is personal, right? But again, there's other situations that join it, and I'll give an example here. It can include the personal, e.g., the TINX resembler becoming expressive. I should never have said that because it's already on there. There, redundancy. E.g., the TINX resembler becoming expressive when talking on its territory, e.g., about an interest, or more open with feelings when talking to someone it has a good relationship with. However, situational includes something the personal does not. The idea that certain situations draw on certain faculties, Jungian cognitive functions, which are of opposite vertness to the type, e.g., situations which draw on the extroverting functions of the introvert. Where am I going wrong so far? Right. And then this is in conscious orientation. For example, the psychiatrist Vanderhoek, a TINX resembler trained by Jung. Yes, he referred to himself as, via translation, via Laura Horton, an introvert of thinking type with subsidiary intuition. Wrote in Conscious Orientation on page 24 about taking up horse riding again after a long interval. He stated that in order not to be thrown by the horse, his attention was riveted on the totality of my sense experience and my reactions to it. So now I'm going to start calling instincting sensory instincting to make it a bit clearer. We have one viewer. Will I get a super chat? Maybe if it's Alex. So he was in a state of SE, extroverting sensory instincting because of the situation. In practice, a real person is best described as dynamically alternating between degrees of extroverting and introverting and moving along a vertness spectrum. This can be a moment-by-moment change. Also, a real person resembles rather than is a type, hence TINX resembler. In my humble opinion, even though a type resembler can do atypical things, they tend to do it in a typical way, e.g. a by-the-book SITX-like artist. Jung on extroverting. With this concept, I denote a manifest relatedness of subject to object in the sense of a positive movement of subjective interest towards the object. One should speak of active extroversion when deliberately willed. and of a passive extroversion when the object compels it, i.e. attracts the interest of the subject of its own accord, even against the latter's intention. Should the state of extroversion become habitual, the extroverted type appears. Now, what I can mention there is, and what I should have worked in, is that I believe the introvert is more likely to do passive extroverting than active extroverting, because that would be an example of, say, the environment drawing the attention of the introvert to take them out of their introverting into extroverting, such as the introvert being disturbed when the introvert wishes to be left alone. So that's that bit. So now what do? We go on to the next slide. A little bit of structure. So that's that bit about the corresponding roles. And I'm going to elaborate on that. And so these are directive roles, and these are informing roles. And so the directive roles are best enacted by a naturally directive type. NTJs are naturally directive. So the directive types are NJs and STs. We can see why the NJ is directive because of the NI. All the NI wheelhouse types are directive. They have that sort of strategic vision or diplomatic vision. If you see here, these ones are directive. All these NI ones, directive. Proactive enterprise and reactive inquiry. Proactive enterprise, directive. So, the next one. And then this is going to be explained, this contending, arranging stuff. So, this is a bit on subfunctions. I need to elaborate on this a bit more. So when I say like conventional business logic, like I don't want to say that TE is conventional thinking. It is with guardians. So the thing is, TE is neutral when it comes to utilitarian cooperative, because I think TI wants to be utilitarian and do it its own way, which can help to explain why TI is the opposite of FE, in that the FE is considering the feelings and opinions of others, and TI is very utilitarian and wanting to do it its own way. And so by default, TI will do it its own way rather than doing it by the book. TE approach is they don't care. TE approach is just do whatever way works. If it's somebody else's way, they'll use that. TI by default wants to do it its own way first, because it's part of this self-esteem and the arrogance maybe of TI. And the self-esteem of TI. So the NTPs and the STPs, you see it at the whole type level. I think by default, if it's a choice between doing it their own way and by the book, they'll do it their own way. So you can see that on screen. I don't need to read that out. It needs to be elaborated a bit more. But I would say it seems to see things which are there. Pragmatic compromises, I would say that is harmonizing. Normalizing wouldn't work. Normalizing would just, like I put there, M. See, that's where I've moved it around. That used to be normalizing. And then I looked at that and I thought, hang on a minute, that's just main. So that N shouldn't even be there. Again, so the sub functions are a work in progress. See the video on TE. So, because I've got more to cover rather than go all the way through sub functions. But I believe in sub functions and it helps with certain. Now here is I can go over some. I didn't go over this last time, and so this will go over how Kersey saw INTJ, the way they acted. Now, ostensibly, he didn't do functions, and the reason why, it's more than ostensible, because he was into like Gestalt, and he was against the elementalism of Freud. So, but we can see how he's really is describing the NITX if we just look at this and see, and we consider which functions this intelligent role, this social role, is drawing on. All NTs are good at planning operations, but mastermind INTJs are head and shoulders above the rest in contingency planning and what is called entailment management. A contingency plan has if-thens in it, put there to deal with foreseeable operational errors. Foreseeable, so you're going into the future. The key theme of NI and the shortages of personnel and material. So then we start getting into practical thinking. All sorts of contingencies are bound to arise when any complex project is undertaken, from planning the family invasion in Europe to preparing for the invasion of Europe, as in World War II, or maybe liberation. Such operations involve many, many steps, each of which must be coordinated to follow one another in a necessary progression, each of which can be subject to unforeseen problems. So the intellect, so the person in this role has to get the sequence of steps correct in order to achieve a long-term strategic objective. And it's about, well, if this happens, then we do this. And so it's a lot of thinking about what can happen and how things are developing in the future. And so you have socionics calling NI the intuition of time. But what it really means is, a better name for it is the intuition of development. How will things develop? If you think about project development, how long have they been developing the F-35 or the PAC-FAR, or the Indians with the Arjun tank and Tejas? So here we go. Masterminds. Oh, here we go. Each of which is subject to unforeseen problems. Masterminds are able to grasp how each step necessitates or entails the next, and to prepare alternatives for difficulties that are likely to arise. INTJs never set the course of their current project without a plan A firmly in mind, but they're always prepared to switch to plan B or C or D if they're called for. That is that role. So what Kersey has done here is he has made it solid, and we can correlate this to NI and TE. So I will call this the social plane of NI correlated with TE. Now, the next one, we're just going to see a bit about Galenka and see the comparisons with that. So I would say noticing contradictions and omissions, that to me, that's not NI. That's thinking and logic. It's not really subjective with the contradictions. Here we go. Contemplative wait and see behavior. And we got this intuition of development thing. Thinking of the past, remembering past, trying to prevent them from happening again. Extrapolate, looking for signs of the past repeating itself. That's how that operates. That. I don't wish to read through that. Skeptical of hasty initiatives. Very careful, waiting for the right moment to act. Has a philosophical contemplative outline, generalization, but here's the bit. Act strategically on the basis of long-term goals. This goes to Victor's I.L.I. What's that temperament? Associative. I've forgotten the name of the temperament. The I.L.I. one. It's the NI and SI DOMs. Oh dear. Yeah, strategically on the basis of long-term goals. So we see a similarity there. 18 minutes already. How much more have I got? Right. Okay, then we get to what Galenka put about TE. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you the TE stuff, the bits that I've tagged as TE in Kersey's INTJ profile. So, thorough pragmatists. Right. Every idea, they will entertain any idea holding promise. Utility. Did I put utility on that list of functions? Maybe not. Maybe because it could be related to just ST in general, utility. Right. Fruitful theories are quickly applied, all else discarded. Right. I would say that relates to SI, an anti-SI approach. Here we go. Here's a key bit of TE. They will adopt ideas only if they're useful, which is to say that they work efficiently towards accomplishing well-defined goals. Goals NI, so you can see the T with the NI. The confidence, again, the T with the SE. Easily, ideas seem to carry their own force for them, although they subject every idea to the test of usefulness. Key line to remember about, so you can see here, the Socionics people reading this should not, in my humble opinion, mistake this for LII. They should not. It's blatantly there. If they're only read carefully. Difficulties are highly stimulating to INTJs, and they love responding to a problem that requires a creative solution. Then here we go here about the application. I should add some things like utility and application to that list. These lead into occupations where theoretical models can be translated into actuality. Translated into actuality. So we see the TE. They build data and human systems wherever they work. If given the slightest opportunity, they can be outstanding in scientific research and as executives in business. Practical. Work long and hard and steady in the pursuit of goals. Again, that NI. Anything else there in TE? Indispensable in a well-run organization. If they encounter problems of overlapping functions, duplication of effort, inefficient paper flow, and waste of human material, they're quick to realign operations to sack people. Cost effectiveness, maybe you could say the FE versus TE. Drive themselves, and then I'm going to revisit this profile for other things. So you can see the TE all over this. So now we've got Hal Galenka and what he wrote in the TE box, and then we can have a comparison. So frugality, well, that's also part of the frequently INTJs are fives, Enneagram 5 fixated rather, and so we've got stinginess with time, effort, and money. So this TE is very much slanted towards business logic. It's even there, business logic of saving, business logic of investments. And so here's the issue with this. This version of TE minus, is based on ESTJ. And so when Victor then writes this profile, he's going to write this as ESTJ mode in. So he's even put, they make smaller scale supervisors. That's the predisposed role of ESTJ. Profitable way to sell their old possessions. Again, the Kersey profile is more open than that. It's about practicality. Whereas this is more, there's this thing in Socionics where it gets narrow. Like offering advice is a way of putting information there quite over time. So, yeah, but that's like the supervisor role, because again, it's acting like TE minus, which is the lead function of ESTJ. We're not to accept snap decisions nor yield to blind enthusiasm. Yes, because they're thinking about the consequences. And I can achieve mastery in a pair of assembly kind of jobs. That might be, I would say that is kind of ST, although mastery is related to Enneagram 5 and NITs are frequently E5 fixated. Smaller scale supervisors and ESTJ mode. Surprising skill 11. Now, Brian May looks like Newton, same hairstyle. Married a woman with the same hairstyle as well. INTJ a lot. PhD in astrophysics. Yeah, hardly ever smiles. We've got him pegged. Right. Is there anything else? No, that's it. I'm going to stop this now. So that's enough for TE. Yeah, I need to work on this, but what things to do. A cough, Wilbur's housemates.